Common good to hear in English. He was another government. Cardinal Suwon Kim Jong-nam, former editor-in-chief of the Peace newspaper. On February 16, 2009, Cardinal Suwon Kim passed away at the age of 86. 13 years have passed since Cardinal Kim Soo-won passed away, but the Republic of Korea is still living in a difficult world. This article was published in the May-June 2009 issue of The Commons. It's a long story, but I recommend you read it slowly. On the night of February 15, I had a dream that I did not have very well. I don't know what kind of meeting it was, but I was among some people, and Cardinal Kim Soo-won appeared with a quiet smile. We didn't even talk much, but that innocent smile remained in my mind. After waking up, I had a strange foreboding that I must have heard bad news today. After returning home that day, around 6:30, I heard from the media that the Cardinal had just passed away, along with a request for a manuscript for a memorial service. Since September of last year, I had been in bed for several days, and intermittently heard that I was ill. I didn't even send a New Year's card this year to avoid burden. When you receive a letter, be sure to reply. Hearing the news of his death, I couldn't help but feel empty in the sky. The sky was falling and the earth was going down. The bosom that embraced us disappeared, and I couldn't control the desolate emptiness of being thrown into an empty field. Partly because I had to write a tribute, I barely slept that night. It just made me feel restless. How could it have been just me? It is said that if you follow the procession of 400,000 mourners who came from the heart from the next day, it would be over 300 kilometers. Most of them would not have met the Cardinal in their lifetime. Still, in the cold weather, they stood in line to bite their tails. If you have met the Cardinal even just once, you will have a precious relationship that only the two of you can have. Some, like me, would have eagerly wanted to see the Cardinal's last path with a great sense of loss, while others would have wanted to transmit the last path with a watchful mind at the shadow of the Cardinal that he gave during his lifetime. One person in line said, "I feel at ease when I see the Cardinal, so it is not difficult even in cold weather." Another person with a disability said, "I came here because I know the heart of the person who always took the side of the marginalized." Cardinal Kim Soo-won was a great comfort to many people just to be with him even while he was alive. He left comfort. It was said that a person must die to know its true face. It's not something he didn't feel during his lifetime, but Cardinal Kim Soo-won only revealed his true form after he passed away. In fact, even with all kinds of praise, it would not be possible to describe the character he had and the kindness he brought to the world. The Catholic Bishops' Conference commemorated him as, not only touched everyone's hearts with his unadorned and simple humanity, but also had a generous heart to draw. Fool, does not there will be Cardinal Suwon Kim as a religious leader and Cardinal Suwon Kim as a human. But before Cardinal Suwon Kim in the Catholic Church, I would like to say that he was Cardinal Suwon Kim in the people. What was Cardinal Kim Soo-won really to the people who lived at the same time? I would like to say that Cardinal Kim Soo-won was another government for the Korean people in the 1970s and 1980s. Cain. Whereas Abel at the end of Imperial Russia, there was, of course, one government as an oppressive institution ruled by the Tsar, and there was also a record somewhere that there was another spiritual government, symbolized by Leo Tolstoy. In comparison, I think that if there was an oppressive real government as an authoritarian military governing body led by Park Chung-hee and Chun Doo-won in the 1970s and 1980s in the Republic of Korea, We also had another government with Cardinal Kim Soo-won as the central point. While the former was a tyrannical, anti-democratic, and unjust government of anti-human rights, the latter was a humane government built on the basis of love and justice, democracy and human dignity. In reality, it did not exist, but spiritually, it can be said that it was our government that existed in the hearts of our people. It was at the 50th anniversary of the Catholic Girls' Hall a few years ago. Hearing the Cardinal lament that you are growing old hopelessly without achieving anything, I tell the Cardinal that you were another government to our people, and that you are still imprinted in their hearts as our government. I've been told that's why he said, and quote, isn't it just waiting for something to come out of your mouth whenever the government is wandering because you don't know which way to go? And quote, at that time, the Cardinal had a puzzled expression on his face, as if it had been the first time he had heard such an expression. The next time we met, the Cardinal told me not to say nonsense, saying that if I were a government, I should have power, but what power I had that made me a government. However, I would like to reiterate that Cardinal Kim Soo-won was the spiritual government that existed in the hearts of our people when our people were under the oppression of a military dictatorship in the 1970s and 1980s. I think the decisive moment that made Cardinal Soo-won Kim feel like another government was during the June uprising of 1987. Indeed, he was another government at the time, and he did a great job. On January 14, 1987, when Park Jong-chul of Seoul National University was tortured by police brutally, Cardinal Kim Soo-won said this to Chun Doo-won's Fifth Gong regime at the Human Rights Restoration Mass at Myeongdong Cathedral on January 26 of that year. Now God is asking us, where is your son, your disciple, your young man, Park Jong-chul, one of your people? I did not know because he fell down when he hit the desk with, bang. It was done by 2 torture police officers, so we don't know. That's Cain's answer. Ellipsis. In this temple today, the first thing I would like to say about the regime responsible for the death of Park Jong-chul is, aren't you afraid of God? Doubts about the morality of this regime cannot but be raised fundamentally. Is there any conscience and morality at the root of this regime, or is it only the power of a gun at the root of this regime? This again raises a serious question of conscience as to whether or not we should follow such a regime. Cardinal Kim Soo-won is resolutely asking the Chun Doo-won regime, which is rampant with a gun, whether you really have a conscience and morality, whether you should follow this regime as it is, not strictly. These were words that no one but Cardinal Soo-won Kim could have said. Perhaps one of the most decisive and fiercest of the Cardinal's remarks is this passage. He rebukes and appeals not only to the government, but also to the people. We are one Korean and one bloodline with Park Jong-chul. Leaders, the people, the ruling party, the opposition party, parents, teachers, and religious people should all kneel before the horrific death of a young man, beat their hearts, weep and reflect. In Dostoevsky's work in Quot, Crime and Punishment in Quot, Rodion Raskolnikov, the prostitute who loved him, said to him, in Quot, get up, go straight to the crossroads, kneel down on the ground you have polluted, kiss me, and bow down to the whole world. You must shout that you have committed murder. Then God will bring you back to life. Would you go and do that? Are you going to do that? He pleaded with earnest repentance. Sonia said these words with a contrite heart and she was grieved with the sin. So she said, let's go together. She and she together bear the cross of suffering, she said. Because of that, Rodion followed her words and became a new perso. end by her penance, and Sonia was with them all along this penance in her path of asceticism. Today we need this kind of penance. Not only the investigators who tortured and murdered Park, but also all the investigators who tortured him in other cases, superiors who knew or tolerated their work well, all those who exercise public power and government officials, and the fact that this is the case in our country. All of us, who have been listening to this over and over again, but so far indifferent as others, go to the great crossroads like Rodion and say to the whole world, all-knowing, just and merciful God, we have committed the crime of murder. We have committed the crime of murder, and we must shed sincere tears of repentance. When these tears of repentance and atonement flow in our hearts today, and when there is God's forgiveness, we in our society can only be saved. We will truly be reborn as new people, and our society and our nation will be reborn as well. The reason I quote this homily at a particularly long length is because the words of Cardinal Kim Soo-won, who are devoted to the government and the people, are so desperate. This is because Cardinal Kim Soo-won is weak. Furthermore, the Cardinal's homily or words do not condemn either party unilaterally, but rather convey their meaning, justice and love, with all their heart. Cardinal Kim Soo-won's words are so desperate and sordid, so that no one can blame them for them, nor can they disobey them. That's how much it touches the heart of the listener. That is why Cardinal Soo-won Kim's homily preparations are always prepared by hand with considerable time and effort. Also, while the members of the Word painfully ask, "Are you not afraid of God?" and "Is there any conscience and morality at the root of this regime?" the Cardinal's words have a strange magic that never sounds like a fight. He had the power to make the other side listen as well. This made many people feel warm and comfortable under the Cardinal's shadow, the Cardinal's wings. Upward for the June uprising. This sermon, titled, "Dedicated to the Altar of Democracy Park Jong-cheol's Death," came from the fact that Park Jong-cheol was tortured to death in the anti-communist office of the security headquarters was revealed. This was before the fact that the torture and death of Park Jong-cheol was reduced, covered up, and manipulated by the Fifth Fair Authority was revealed. The death of Park Jong-cheol alone was a shock to the Cardinal. On May 18 of that year, when it was revealed that the Fifth Fair Authority had reduced, concealed, and manipulated the death of Park Jong-cheol, the people of the world were astonished once again. As the title of Cardinal Kim Soo-won's homily, the death of Park Jong-cheol is truly dedicated to this country's democratic altar. That's what the June uprising will be like. Coincidentally, it was Cardinal Kim Soo-won who presided over the Mass of the 7th cycle of the Gwangju Democratic Uprising, held at 6:30 p.m. on May 18, 1987 at Myeongdong Cathedral. In this Mass, Cardinal Kim Soo-won said, "It is to commemorate the souls who died unfairly, the victims of Gwangju, and the youth Park Jong-cheol, who were lost in vain while standing together in front of God like this. Please forgive us for our sins of closing our eyes and deaf and ignoring us even though such great things have happened within us, and help us to realize deeply that while we seek the truth in our hearts, God does not want revenge, but forgiveness and reconciliation." This is to beg for the record. It is known that Cardinal Kim Soo-won was already aware of the statement of the priesthood, which was released following this Mass, that the truth about the torture and death of Park Jong-cheol was fabricated, and encouraged Father Kim Sung-hoon to announce if it was true. It was also the Cardinal who protected the students who had flocked to Myeongdong Cathedral after the June 10 National Congress to protest. This sit-down at Myeongdong Cathedral served as a catalyst to spread the June uprising across the country. In the early morning of June 13, When an IAEA official came to notify the police of the forced suppression, Cardinal Kim Soo-won said, "If you want to arrest students, step on me first, and block a bloody clash." That was the first road leading to the peaceful ending of the June uprising and the June 29 declaration. Cardinal Soo-won Kim's steps toward unity with the people stemmed from the 1971 Christmas message. When he was about to enact the so-called Special Act on National Security in order to exercise his emergency power, Cardinal Kim Soo-won said in a Christmas message, "The government, the ruling party, and members of the National Assembly believe that the so-called Special Measures Act for National Security is indispensable in terms of national security in terms of time and situation. Are you conscientiously convinced? Do you believe that the Bowie Act will help achieve national reunification at this time? On the other hand, can you not think that this law is likely to weaken the spirit of the democratic people, create a sense of incongruity between the government and the people, and harm the general national unity itself?" he asked. It remains a famous anecdote that Park Chung-hee, who was watching this broadcast, stopped the broadcast. On August 15, 1972, the Cardinal issued a July 4 inter-Korean joint statement and a message stating his position on the August 3 emergency measures. What is the true meaning of the July 4 statement? Is it really to promote great national unity as a nation, transcending ideology and system, and to seek freedom, peace, and reunification of the motherland, or is it a good sign, and its intention is to permanently freeze both ends of the nation? Will sincere inter-Korean dialogue to truly repay the aspirations of 50 million peoples will begin with the July 4 statement? Or is this statement a gimmick of power politics to prolong the regime of the leaders of the two Koreas? From this point of view, Cardinal Kim Soo-won was already aware of the intentions and implications of the July 4 North-South joint statement and foresaw the Yushin coup for permanent power 2 months after that. Cardinal Kim Soo-won mentioned the 12/12 incident to Commander Chun Do-won, who visited on the first day of January 1980, and said, "It is like a Western drama. I do not understand that martial law commander Jung Sung-hwa is arrested in a situation where the presidency moves back and forth depending on who pulls out the gun," he said face to face. It is said that Chun Do-won went back without saying anything, but he confessed to the people that he was very upset the next day. In May of that year, in the midst of the Gwangju democratization movement, on May 20, I met Chun Do-won and said, "You must not shed any more blood. He should not send troops to Gwangju," he persuaded earnestly. However, Chun Do-won did not even listen to the cardinal. Cardinal Kim Soo-won secretly delivered a letter of consolation to Gwangju citizens and 10 million won in consolation money to Archbishop Yoon Gong-hee through the personal information of the military priest. Cardinal Soo-won Kim says that this was the most painful time. He said later the next day that he thought it would be better to go down to Gwangju and be with the citizens. Cardinal Soo-won Kim did not hesitate to speak bitterly for this country and this community. The so-called Roman speech is a prime example of this. On October 20, 1986, in Rome, Cardinal Kim Soo-won said to the leaders of the opposition parties, in early 1988, after the resignation of the former president and his aides should give up their greed to adhere to power in any form, and the two opposition figures Kim Dae-jung and Kim Young-sam must also give up their desire to become presidents to avoid a national tragedy, he said. When the cardinal's words came out, Ms. Young Kim said that she had emptied her mind, but it was revealed just a year later that those words were empty. Cardinal Kim Soo-won also expressed concern about the pro-North Korean tendencies of the so-called 386 generation through a Christmas message on December 18, 1986, and on the other hand made it clear that the responsibility lies with the older generation. Even if young people who have not experienced the Korean War are easily inclined to socialist ideologies and theories, they are the sons and daughters we should teach and nurture, not our enemies. The responsibility for leading them to an extreme line lies with all of us who failed to reform the contradictory national reality and system in the slightest and failed to teach them properly. Journalists who have to convey the truth, lawyers who have the authority and duty to realize justice, and religious people who have to testify to justice and love are not saying, "Yes," or "No," he said. He was already predicting, and he scolded the older generation who couldn't say, "No," in front of them. When there was a need for a horse, there was the cardinal's horse, and when someone had to speak, the cardinal came. Each time, he picked up only the words that were absolutely necessary for the time and the situation. That is why his words were the light in the darkness, and the clear water in the turbid flow. It was the gospel to the people. However, whenever he made such remarks, Cardinal Soo-won Kim's anguish and lonely decision was a tremendous burden and pain for the individual. Regarding the broadcast Mass in 1971, after spending the whole Christmas Eve in anguish over whether he should say that, he finally concluded an hour before the Mass, "There is no one to talk to but me," and inserted that sentence. Said to have done, the president decides on all important issues through reports from intelligence agencies such as the Central Intelligence Agency and countermeasures meetings with related organizations, but Cardinal Kim Soo-won always had to make lonely choices and decisions without consulting anyone. He alone was the government. Cardinal Soo-won Kim had no one to depend on except God and conscience. Because there was such anguish and prayer there, he always felt the power of truth in his words. The people also understood the loyalty of the cardinal's words at that time. But how hard and painful must Cardinal Kim Soo-won himself be? If you stop, you've done it. I have seen in a commemorative article that Cardinal Kim Soo-won was referred to as the Lamb of God, the Good Shepherd God has prepared for the Republic of Korea for a long time, the prophet of the times, and the servant of the Lord who cried out the truth alone in the wilderness. I agree with the saying that Cardinal Kim Soo-won is the Good Shepherd who has been prepared for the Republic of Korea for a long time. Indeed, he was a shepherd who was prepared for the Republic of Korea and for the Catholic Church in Korea. But looking back, it was so, and the process was never that smooth. He was born into a family of martyrs. His grandfather Kim Bo-yeon was a martyr and his father was born a martyr's benefactor. I did not see the cardinal claiming that he was a descendant of a martyr. Despite the fact that his father and mother were of a devout Catholic family as a peddler of pottery, Cardinal Kim Soo-won, after graduating from school, learned to run a business in a Japanese household and started his own business. Was a boy. It was not the blood of the martyr's family that led the boy to the path of a priest, but his mother's sincere support and earnest hope. Cardinal Kim sought a departure from the given trajectory many times, but never managed to get them out of being a priest. The net of heaven is sparse and sloppy, but never misses a single thing. As Lao Tzu said, becoming a bride is the will of heaven, and perhaps it was his natural destiny. Evening smoke. It was only the sentimentalism or romanticism that I longed for at a woman's house, but it did not interfere with the planned path to the bride. As Cardinal Kim Soo-won said in his speech to commemorate the 50th anniversary of his 80th birthday and ordination as a priest, there were times when I wanted to quit. Still, seeing that God did not let go of his ankles, the path of a priest was already destined for him, and in the end, he had no choice but to accept God's will. The court says that among Christians there are those who speak God and those who feel God, but the cardinal is the one who makes God feel rather than the one who speaks God. Anyone who has met Cardinal Kim Soo-won up close will agree with the court's words. In September 1951, Cardinal Kim Soo-won, who was ordained a priest, took his first steps as a priest at the Andong parish. He burned the Passion of a Priest in Andong, his first assignment, by burning relief money from the American Bishops' Conference with the resolution of a young priest to relieve not only souls but also poverty. After moving to Gimcheon, he was passionate about teaching and running a school with his pastor. Cardinal Soo-won Kim recalled the happiest time when he was able to do pastoral work on the front lines. When he became a priest, the Bible verse he chose was Psalm 51, "Lord, have mercy on this sinner." However, his priestly life takes a new turn by studying in Germany. While studying abroad in Germany, he entered under Professor Hofner and studied Christian sociology, where he came to establish the human understanding based on human dignity, the bond between human beings, and the view of humanity, society, and the state from a Christian perspective. At this time, he realizes deeply that the most important thing for us is the value of respect for human beings and life. It is to establish a Christian view of humanity and society that God created human beings and loves them so deeply that human rights and life that no one can infringe are innate. This belief constitutes a central backbone of the Cardinal's thoughts and activities since then. He studied in Germany for 7 years, but never got his degree. Had he earned his degree, Cardinal Soo-won Kim's life would have been different. It is orthodox that his failure to complete his degree was due to his widespread curiosity about Western culture and his inability to concentrate on his studies, such as responding to the consultations of miners and nurses in Germany at the time. However, the experience of Western civilization that respects human beings and the atmosphere of the Second Vatican Council, led by Pope John XXIII, was the greatest income of all while studying in Germany. Cardinal Kim Soo-won, who returned to Korea in the mid-1960s, took on the role of the president of the Catholic Times, and was zealous in translating the news of the Roman Council at that time and making it known in Korea. Cardinal Soo-won Kim said that this was the most rewarding period, and he took great views of the writings he wrote at that time. At that time, the council was a major milestone in the renewal of the world church, so he worked without even spending time to eat. In this process, he argued that the Catholic Church should take an attitude to seek society, and that priests in particular should feel the real problems in society and the conditions of human life with their own skin. He accepted the Second Vatican Council in his body faster than anyone else in Korea, and took the initiative in promoting it to the Korean Church. I cannot understand Cardinal Soo-won Kim leaving the Second Vatican Council. Cardinal Soo-won Kim's pastoral activities are thoroughly supported by the spirit and teachings of the Second Vatican. In 1966, as the diocesan bishop of Masan, in accordance with the spirit of the Second Vatican Council, he held a seminar for believers on the premise that all people in the Church are the same, with no difference between priests and laity in their dignity, and sought dialogue between priests and lay people. Since 1967, he has been involved in the activities of the Catholic Workers' Youth Association, and as the governor and bishop, the bishops took a leading role in announcing the Statement for Social Justice and Protection of Rights in response to the Gangwon-deep textile incident, the case of driving the union activities of the Catholic Workers' Youth Association to a communist event. The content of the content was that, the Church has the right and duty to teach Christian social justice, and the function of the trade union is the power and pride of a country that puts anti-communism at the forefront of the state. The bishops will make active efforts to ameliorate unfair labor management relations because they must be protected regardless of the circumstances. This is a remarkable event that not only informs Cardinal Kim Soo-won, but also changes in the attitude of the Catholic Church in Korea. The first document affected by the Second Vatican Council was the statement of the bishops at this time. In 1968, Cardinal Soo-won Kim became Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Seoul, and his missionary goal at this time was, "For you and all," and in his inaugural address as the Archbishop of Seoul, he made a statement of conversion saying, and quote, "We must break down the high walls of the Church and plant the Church in society," and quote. Going to the Synod of Bishops, the Church is sensitive to the issues it concerns itself, but it is also said that the problem is that it ignores the issues of its neighbors. Indeed, from this point on, Cardinal Kim Soo-won is moving on the path of mothers and teachers of those whose poverty is not their fault, those who have no appeal even though they are trampled upon by injustice, and those who groan under that burden. However, the road was also a road of great agony and trials. First, conflicts and confrontations with political power were inevitable. In July 1974, Bishop Ji Hak-sun was arrested. It was the state power that jumped over the high wall of the Church first. As the head of the Korean Catholic Church, Cardinal Soo-won Kim had to protect the Church against political power on the one hand, and on the other hand seek renewal and reconciliation of the Church in accordance with the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. A passage in the Bible that Cardinal Kim Soo-won particularly frequently quoted in his homily or lectures around that time is Matthew chapter 5, the Beatitudes, 8th Dan. Happy, the poor in spirit, happy, mourners, happy, meek, happy, hunger and thirsty for what is right, happy, merciful, happy, persecuted for doing what is right. You are happy when you are insulted, persecuted, and accusations of nonsense because of me. Rejoice and be glad. In addition to the 8th Dan blessing, a Bible verse commonly quoted at prayer meetings in the 1970s and 1980s is Luke 4:18-19, "The Holy Spirit of the Lord has come upon me. He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. The Lord has sent me to proclaim liberty to those who are bound, to give sight to the blind, to set liberty to the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He spread out his arms and scattered the works of the proud. He casts down the powerful from their seats, exalts the little ones, the hungry are filled with good things, and the rich return empty-handed." It was to, however, Cardinal Soo-won Kim's favorite verse was, "Whatever you did for the least of my brother, you did for me," Matt. 25:40. Regarding the case of Bishop Hak Soon-ji, Cardinal Soo-won Kim said to the Church, "This incident has become an opportunity for great reflection for the renewal of our Church today. It gave us an opportunity to reflect on whether we really had interest in our neighbors and a sense of society. It was an opportunity to reflect on whether we have fulfilled our responsibility to society, and urge all our bishops, clergy, and laity to reflect on their own religious life together on this occasion. Human rights violations are blasphemy against human beings, and this is again blasphemy against Christ and God, who are their prototypes. The restoration of human rights is the restoration of human beings, and human restoration as the restoration of the image of God, the Lord of love and life, in human beings, he exclaimed in the wilderness. In 1978, a worker who came to the church when the company and the authorities jointly destroyed and trampled the Dongle Textile Union because the union executive department was under the control of the red-haired Shingukyo Industrial Missionary Church. In front of the field, Cardinal Kim Soo-won asked, and QUOT, does this country's laws exist to punish the weak? And QUOT, at the Myeongdong Cathedral prayer meeting for the protection of teaching authority, please stop doing stupid things now. Please put an end to these false fabrications and manipulations. We have been respectful and patient so far. But if this continues, we can no longer condone it. Everyone, please save the women workers who were victims of this incident. If you don't save them, it's actually like killing them with your own hands. The way to save them is yours and the way we all live. He shared his name with the Dongle textile workers. In 1979, during the Wonchun incident, in a prayer meeting held on August 6 of that year, he said, "We must accept the suffering and pain of the field church as our own. It is deplorable that the truth becomes a lie and a lie becomes the truth, but the church has suffered a lot to uncover the truth. However, the church will always be resurrected again." In 1982, when Father Ki Sik Choi was arrested on charges of concealing criminals during the arson of the Busan American Cultural Center, he said, "It is the duty of a priest to protect the lambs who have come to the church." Went out the ordeal at this time was the most severe since the era of persecution. It was the disagreement within the church that plagued Cardinal Kim Soo-won as much as the confrontation and conflict with political power. When he was appointed as the Archbishop of Seoul in 1968, the spirit of distrust and rejection of Cardinal Kim Soo-won was already born in the church. Those who feared the renewal of the Church in order to embody the spirit of the Second Vatican Council began to terrify Cardinal Kim Soo-won. After the arrest of Bishop Hak Soon-ji and the formation of the Order for Justice, division and conflict arose, such as the so-called Salvation Priests, altar, publicly opposing the Church's remarks on society after the March 1, 1976, Myeongdong Cathedral Democracy Declaration incident broke out. Became present. Divisions and conflicts also existed within the bishopric. The cardinal also had to play a role in reconciling the conflict between church renewal and conservatives within the bishopric. However, the cardinal has always chosen a direction that conforms to the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. In the process, he also had to be hit by the intense fire of the media, which was on the side of the military dictatorship, including the Chosun Ilbo. As Cardinal said, Cardinal Kim Soo-won contemplated every moment on which side should I stand, and if I can lead the church properly if this goes on like this. Cardinal Kim Soo-won would pray in front of the cross asking, "God, what should I do?" Cardinal Kim Soo-won's homily delivered at the time of the March 1 Myeongdong Cathedral Declaration of Democracy and Salvation demonstrates how the church was divided at that time and how great Cardinal Kim Soo-won's anguish was. I will not say that I did a good job with the priests involved in this case. But I don't think they're very wrong either. Because it is clear that their actions were not done to overthrow the government, but only out of their own religious convictions and priestly conscience, and out of patriotism. They act in the sense that they will do their best to make this country and its people a brighter and lonely country. Because I have no doubt that, I believe their motives were obviously good, and they were based on faith. Because their fundamental concern was the protection of social justice and human rights before the political system. As always, the belief that the biggest theme is man created in the image of God has always dominated Cardinal Suwon Kim. During those difficult times in the 1970s and 1980s, whenever a decision had to be made, this belief acted as an absolute standard for Cardinal Suwon Kim. And his preference for the poor also played an important role in his decision-making. I believe that Myeongdong Cathedral was able to stand tall in the hearts and minds of the people and in history as a sacred place for democratization because it was possible because of the symbolism of Myeongdong Cathedral and the activities of Cardinal Suwon Kim and the priests for the realization of Catholicism. Myeongdong Cathedral, Cardinal Kim Suwon, and the priesthood existed and were active as a trinity, so Myeongdong Cathedral was able to become a sacred place for democracy in Korea in the 20th century. The midnight mass on Christmas Day at Myeongdong Cathedral was always full, and Cardinal Suwon Kim's homily at that mass was a nectar to quench thirst, a light to illuminate the darkness, and the gospel to teach us where to go. As a result, the number of Catholics from less than 2 million increased to over 5 million, and the status of the Catholic Church was much higher than what is revealed in Numbers. When there was criticism that Cardinal Kim Suwon's thoughts and activities did not keep up with the times in his later years, the Cardinal said, and quote, "Until now, I was secretly worried that he was trying to make me an idol by living after receiving so many compliments. In doing so, he shamed those who criticized him." He continued, and quote, "I regret that I did not put love into practice even though I lived with the word love in my mouth. I should have humbled myself more and wiped away the tears of the poor, but I couldn't." He felt he was comforted, especially when he held the harsh hands of the poor, but he considered it irreparable remorse for his failure to live with them. Cardinal Kim Suwon, who had a martyr as his grandfather, through his 103rd canonization, clearly highlighted the true nature of the Korean Church in the world. Perhaps, it would be unprecedented in the history of the Church to produce 103 adults at once in one country. In 1968, at the beatification ceremony for the 24th beatified martyrs, following the 79th and 24th who had already been beatified in St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome, Cardinal Suwon Kim officiated and Bishop Dubong of Andong Diocese read the Gospel. The Gospel that was read at that time was clichéd 8th Dan. A miracle occurs in canonization, and it must be officially confirmed by the Holy See. But there was no way to prove it. At this time, I was told that the canonization petition written by Cardinal Kim Suwon played a decisive role. Why didn't a miracle happen among the forefathers of faith who even gave their lives to testify of their faith? I just can't prove it. However, the miracles caused by the martyrs continue to this day. The Church will rise again from the ashes of 100 years of persecution, and the gospel will spread, reaching 100,000 young people a year, if not a miracle. In May 1984, the 103rd canonization ceremony held by John Paul II was another miracle that came after Cardinal Suwon Kim's efforts. Cardinal Suwon Kim also raised the Korean Church into a global church. In 1973 he played a leading role in establishing the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences as a permanent consultative body. Cardinal Suwon Kim was recognized worldwide as one of the most brilliant figures in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. In 1989, the 44th Eucharistic Congress was held in Korea, and the status of the Korean Church was greatly improved, and now it has grown from a receiving church to a giving church enough to send missionaries to the world. It was also Cardinal Kim Suwon who raised interest in pastoral care in North Korea. Since 1965, He has only remembered the North Korean Church by enacting the Sunday following June 25 as a day of prayer for the Church of Silence. It provided an opportunity to reconsider. The Seoul Archdiocese's jurisdiction spanned Wangha-do beyond the Armistice Line, and the cardinal, who also served as the head of the Pyongyang diocese, drew the cross 3 times when giving blessings at the end of each Mass, and always consciously performed one of them for the sake of the North Korean compatriots. It was hoped that such a blessing would enable him to unite himself with his North Korean brothers in Christ. In 1992, the Day of Prayer for the Church of Silence was changed to a Day of Prayer for National Reconciliation and Unity. That year, Cardinal Kim Soo-won announced the August 15 Message for National Reconciliation and Unity, which stated that reconciliation within the nation should be the basis for inter-Korean reunification such as the North Korean Compatriots movement. As mentioned earlier, the focus of Cardinal Soo-won Kim's interest as a priest was on the dignity of human beings created in the image of God. Therefore, in the 1990s, Cardinal Soo-won Kim's interest expanded beyond the dimension of democratization to humanization. It is the One Mind, One Body movement, which started in preparation for the World Eucharistic Congress in 1989, and begins to accompany concrete practices. He developed in the direction of pursuing the humanization of society by practicing sharing in the places of life where believers live, such as organ donation, blood donation, adoption, and concern for the elderly who have no place to rely on. During this process, Cardinal Kim Soo-won takes an eye donation pledge. That fact was known along with his death. From this point on, the Cardinal's new interest now extends to AIDS patients, mentally ill women, prostitutes, overseas adopted children, foreign workers, Korean Chinese, free lunch centers, North Korean defectors, homeless people, and unconverted long-term residents. According to Cardinal Soo-won Kim, true freedom is humanization in the true sense, justice is based on right human relationships, and peace is not only a state of no war, but a state in which everyone can be loved, and lived like a human being. Even after democratization, our society tormented Cardinal Kim Soo-won so much and made it difficult. He compelled the cardinal to say, "There are times when I am sad that I still have to say this." In Myeongdong Cathedral, not only those who really needed help, but also people with high voices flocked to find their share, making Cardinal Soo-won Kim tired. In any case, as Cardinal Kim Soo-won left the post of Archdiocese of Seoul, he said, "I think I will be able to sleep comfortably from today. It's just cool and I'm not upset," and QUOT, he said, is probably true. This is how he described his 30 years as diocesan bishop. "If I were to rate my 30 years as a diocesan bishop myself, I am not confident that I would rate it above 60. But even if I go back to 30 years ago and do it again, I'm not confident I'll do it any better." This would be his selfless confession. He did his best. His path as a church leader was to walk with the cross. There were many times when I was tired and wanted to put down the cross. But each time he said, "God, let your will be done," and he had no choice but to surrender it to God. Still, he was always in front of himself and feared that others would be obscured, and while calling for justice, he feared that it would become another self-righteousness. He said during his lifetime that if he stood before God, he would be faithful to God, and he did not. "Please forgive this sinner and I beg your pardon," he said. He thought he was stupid. But I believe. As Bishop Kang Woo-il said in his farewell speech, God said to Cardinal Kim Soo-won, who came to eternal rest, "Come." My dear fool, if you stop, you have accomplished everything. It can be said that it was fortunate for everyone to live in the same era with Cardinal Suwon Kim.